I was thinking of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim before beginning the talk, these first 5 minutes, because the adhan is going getting later. Am I correct? That's gonna okay. Yeah, because I don't plan on speaking any more than 45 minutes, so we got about 5 to 10 minutes, if it's okay, to leave it for questions. If there's any questions, whether it's related to the topic, because some people may have questions with regards to what is being said, or with regards to other issues, if there's any questions. Inshallah, but first 5 minutes before, inshallah, and then we'll start the talk. If there's any questions on brother's side or the sister's side, we'll start at 8:10, inshallah. That's okay. Yes. Alaykum as-salam. Yes. He didn't say, I don't know ghaib. See, that's one of the taqiyya at the time of the imams, which is basically that the imams had to be very careful with their surroundings. There were people that didn't understand what the Ahlul Bayt would say, and there were people that had problems with the Ahlul Bayt, and they would look for every excuse to get at the Ahlul Bayt. It seems in that hadith that some people had, some of the Shi'as who knew what the Ahlul Bayt had leaked that information, and they had spoken about the ilmul ghaib of the imams. And that had gotten out, and people were now saying this, that, oh, the Shia believe their imam has knowledge of the unseen. You see today what people say, people who don't understand the Ahlul Bayt, what they say about that, right? They say that Shia are making things up, this, that, the other. And it's a reason to what? It's a reason to push people away from Shias. In other words, some people are using some of the verses of the Holy Quran that talk about no one except for God having ilmul ghaib. Of course, as I said in one of the earlier sessions, it's a very narrow scope. You take one verse and want to interpret everything in the Quran with that. You don't look at even other verses. So they say only God has ilmul ghaib. These guys are saying their imam has ilmul ghaib as well. They start spreading this information to push people away from the Ahlul Bayt. Okay, what the imam tries to do is to try to allow people not to get distracted. Okay, so he doesn't deny having ilmul ghaib at all. He starts, like, the wording is very clever. You gotta be able to see that cleverness from the Ahlul Bayt. He raises a question. He says, they say we have ilmul ghaib. If I had ilmul ghaib, I would know where my slave is. Well, does he not know where his slave is? He doesn't say, I don't know. He just raises a question. Okay. But even his Shias think he's denying it. So to clear it up with them and to tell them, look, don't get this wrong. It wasn't for you. It's for somebody else. Because that was an open session. Right? There's a lot of people that are there. They're not Shia. They don't understand the Ahlul Bayt. The Ahlul Bayt are trying to attract them, gradually draw them to the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt. So he tells them, look, you've read that verse, Man kana indahu ilmun min al-kitab, and then the verse that says, Man indahu ilmul kitab. And we are the ones that are indahu ilmul kitab. The entire knowledge of the book is with us. That person only had a little bit. We have in hadith, other hadith, that he had a very, very small amount of that knowledge. That companion of Prophet Sulaiman that was able to bring the throne of Bilqis in a split second, in a blink of an eye. He had a little bit of the knowledge of the book. And the Ahlul Bayt have all of the knowledge of the book. Okay, So what the Imam was doing is, on one hand, in a very clever way, trying to sort of get people to think he's saying he doesn't have knowledge of the unseen, in order to bring people who've been pushed away back. Okay, in order to take away that excuse that people have for not coming to the Imam because of the information that they're not able to digest being said about the Imams. And then just to make sure that the Shias don't fall for it, or the Shias don't misunderstand this, he clears up afterwards what he actually intended by that, by telling them, no, we do have that knowledge. Of course, again, in a very clever way. If you read only that one hadith, you'll be pretty confused. Like, okay, do they have it? Do they not have it? You got to look at other hadith as well. Okay. Any other questions from sister side, brothers? We're going to start at 8 to 10. We said we're going to give first few minutes to questions, if there's any questions on the topic or on other topics. And if there isn't, we'll at 8:10 start. Yes. Did all of the household of the Prophet have the same knowledge? Yes. Household meaning the Imams and the Lady Fatima Zahra. Yes. The Imams? See, what I want to clarify is that we're talking about the 14 ma'sums. Yes. Yes. We're not talking about others. Although, the same way that the companion of Sulaiman had a little bit of that knowledge, we have, and he wasn't a prophet either. We definitely have Zainab Salamullah alayha that has some of that knowledge. Okay. We definitely have other children of the Imams that have some of that knowledge. If an ordinary person that's not even in the household of prophethood and is further away, they can develop themselves to have that type of knowledge, then someone who's within can have that. Yes, some of the children have had some of that, but not the way they've had it. They're not part of the 14 ma'sumin that have it at their level. Okay, something less than that. Yes, that exists, and it's not limited to the household either. There are people that are outside of that have some of that as well. We can develop and inshallah get some of that too. Okay, recite a salawat please. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد والثناء لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين المنتجبين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. For the hastening and the return of our Imam, please recite the salawat. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over the course of these days, when we're going over this ziyarah, that He enlightens our hearts to the light of the ma'sumin. We are in dire need of that. We are unfortunately away from that, and we need to get closer and closer to this. So we've been talking about, or the theme that we've had is the Ahlul Bayt, the path to salvation. And we set the first step in us developing ourselves such that we can benefit from the Ahlul Bayt as the path of salvation or the path to salvation. We've got to increase our knowledge of the Ahlul Bayt. It is not acceptable for us to leave the knowledge that we have of the Ahlul Bayt to where it is. We have to develop it from a superficial understanding, sometimes from fada'il that we hear about the Ahlul Bayt, some of which are true, some of which are not said to us, some of which are made up, unfortunately, but develop a real understanding, what is called ma'arifah of the Ahlul Bayt. A deep knowledge and understanding of the Ahlul Bayt. We can't allow ourselves to have superficial knowledge of them, whether it's about the history of the imams or it is about the fadail of the imams. We have to develop depth. And inshallah, that's what we're trying to do to the best of our ability. For that, we started going over Ziyarah Jami'a Kabira, a great ziyarah, one that we all need to benefit from, one that we are told to recite. Some of the ulama, as we mentioned earlier, recited this ziyarah every visit to the Ahlul Bayt. Unfortunately, we are far away, but we can still make the intention of visiting the imam, a particular imam, and read Ziyarah Jami'a Kabira as a ziyarah for that imam. I hope we do that, inshallah. So the ziyarah reads, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Assalamu alaykum ya Ahla Bayt al-Nubuwwah. Peace be upon you, O household of prophethood. Wa mawdi' al-Risala, and the place and the location and where Risala, the message of the Holy Prophet, the mission of the Holy Prophet, rests. وَمُخْتَلَفَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ, where the angels ascend and descend, or descend and ascend frequently. مُخْتَلَفَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ وَمَهْبِطَ الْوَاحِي, where the wahy and revelation rests. We've gone over these passages, so I'm just giving a brief translation. وَمَعْدِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ, the source of rahmah, or a source of rahmah that God has given them, of course, or He has made them the source of His rahmah for all creation. We arrived at this line that says, وَخُزَّانَ الْعِلْمِ. The Ahlul Bayt are خُزَّانُ الْعِلْمِ. Khuzan is the plural, and what it means is the container. What contains something is a khazin, and the khuzan are people, in this case, that contain something, and what we're talking about here is knowledge. Khuzan al-ilm. They contain al-ilm. It appears, maybe at first glance at least, to be inclusive of all knowledge. They contain all knowledge. They have all knowledge. What is exactly that referring to? Before getting to that and exploring that a bit, let me look at some of the other passages that we have in this ziyarah itself that start to tell us a bit more about this. The imams have told us in the same ziyarah, وَارْتَضَاكُمْ لِغَيْبِهِ, God has appointed you, selected you for His ghaib, for the unseen. Okay, so if they have knowledge, if they are khuzanul ilm, the knowledge they have is not simply knowledge of the ordinary, which I will talk about that as well, but it is the knowledge of the unseen. We're going to explore that concept, inshallah, a bit further. وَاخْتَارَكُمْ لِسِرِّهِ, He has chosen you for His secret, for His sir. In other words, right now, what we can say, there's something that is kept secret from everyone else. There's a sir that God has. It is veiled from others. It is not seen by others. Who has this secret? The Ahlul Bayt. Salamullah alayhim ajma'in. Recite a salawat, please. The same line is repeated again, and we get the idea that this is being emphasized on. We have to understand this. One line reads, وَحَفَظَةً لِسِرِّهِ وَخَزَنَةً لِعِلْمِهِ. Okay, It's very similar to what we just said. حَفَظَةً لِسِرِّهِ. God's secret, they are protectors of it. حَفَظَةً لِسِرِّهِ. And they are خَزَنَةً لِعِلْمِهِ. They hold the knowledge of the divine. They contain that knowledge. So, خُزَانَ الْعِلْمِ, here what we have is خَزَنَةً لِعِلْمِهِ. It's God's knowledge that they have. Okay? Because let's not forget, there is no knowledge except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge. If anyone has any knowledge, it's God-given. That includes our knowledge as well. Sometimes we need that reminder. We think we're very smart and intelligent. We got our own knowledge. It's God-given. Don't forget. Sometimes we need that reminder. Or a lot of times we need that reminder. Okay? That everything is belonging to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sometimes God gives us that lesson. Okay? He teaches us that lesson sometimes. By showing us that, look, it's not up to you. If you had that knowledge, you're trying to pull it up from your memory at that time, at that moment, it's not coming. You can sit there on that exam for God knows how long. I knew this. I read this 50 times. One of the ulama, for speakers, this is something very serious, okay? So when you come up here, you got 45 minutes. You got to talk something to people, right? And one of the ulama said, he used to be in New York. He said, one day I went to the pulpit and I wanted to start. He said, I think I felt some form of arrogance, like this is mine. I went up there, I wanted to say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I couldn't remember Bismillah. I couldn't even remember Bismillah. I was sitting there just thinking, what to say? What is that word that I need to begin with? And it's not coming. People are sitting there, God knows how many people. Quite embarrassing. He said there, in his own words, an istighfar, a tawbah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought the memory back. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's. We shouldn't take it for granted. I have it, I'm intelligent, I'm smart. No, God is giving it. It's ilmullah that the Ahlul Bayt have, and it's given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can't have ilmullah without Him giving it to you. Okay. If they are the source of knowledge, if they are the containers, in a sense, for want of a better word, of knowledge, it's God's knowledge and it's given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now let's explore this a bit. I'll start with some of the more ordinary, some of the knowledge of this world. خَزَنَةً لِعِلْمِهِ, or خُزَانُ الْعِلْمِ. This means, brothers and sisters, anything that you have in the material world, they have the knowledge of it. If the scientists are able to, through their discoveries, through their experiments, discover various dimensions of this material universe, after thousands of years, gradually developing that knowledge, physics, for example, the development of physics, if you look at physics of a couple of thousand years ago, at the time of Aristotle and them, the physics they had, when you read it today, like, this is absurd. Their understanding of how this material world functions. One of the things that they had come up with, apparently, this is what they say, is that everything revolves around the earth. Instead of in this solar system, everything revolving around the sun, they said everything revolves around the earth. They had put together this whole system of physics that now when you look at it, it is absurd. Now, after various developments, I believe it's in the 20th century, that they realized that the physics that they thought they had really developed is still not even half of it, because you have quantum physics. You realize that when you go really micro, things function differently. And God knows how much more we do not know of how this universe functions. Okay. basic information about this material world that we're living in. Basic information about our very bodies. Okay. Medicine. There are illnesses we cannot cure still today. But the knowledge of that, the Ahlul Bayt have. Salamullah alayhim ajma'in. If you hear that someone goes to the shrine of the Imam, Salamullah alayh, any of the Imams, and this happens frequently, let's not deprive ourselves from this belief and from the benefits of this belief, because it sounds a bit weird and maybe we haven't seen it firsthand. People are going to the Ahlul Bayt and actually getting cured. Okay, the cure is there. And it is in the material world that they are getting cured. The Ahlul Bayt are curing them in the material world. How that happens, what matter needs to change, in what way, they know it. And they can make that change, and the body functions perfectly fine afterwards. They have the knowledge of this. We have hadith, when the Imam of our time comes, all of the treasures of this universe are going to reveal themselves. What does that mean? What does it mean that all the treasures of this universe are going to reveal themselves? One of the ulama has an interesting explanation. He says, take the example of electricity. Electricity is one of the treasures hidden within this material world. It was hidden for centuries, for millennia. People didn't have access to it. It was there. People didn't know. Okay. They developed it. Then they knew it was there. They're benefiting from it. Nuclear energy is another example. God knows how much more is hidden and we are not aware of. Okay. During the time of the coming of the Imam, that is going to become evident and it's going to reveal itself through the guidance of the Imam. Of course, believers are going to play a role in this. It's not such that the Imam is just going to come and start saying, okay, here's one technology, there's another discovery there and here and there and so on and so forth. He's going to guide people in that direction. People need to take those steps. Otherwise, the Ahlul Bayt knew it a few centuries ago. They knew it 1400 years ago. Sometimes people ask this, if the Ahlul Bayt had this knowledge, if Amir al-Mu'mineen had this knowledge, then why didn't he start developing nuclear power plants in Kufa? Okay. Well, the issue is people need to develop these. They can guide, and they did. They developed, if we read that history, from where they were, they helped people develop these sciences and technologies. But people need to become part of this. They need to grow intellectually and scientifically. So he's going to help with that. Recite a salawat, please. There are certain areas of knowledge I want to give you examples of so that we can develop a deeper understanding of this. We can just say, okay, khuzan al-ilm, and move on. Some of the stories that we have with regards to the Ahlul Bayt about certain dimensions. Again, this is the lowest of the low, the basic knowledge that they had. One is with regards to the languages. The Ahlul Bayt know all the languages. All the languages that anyone speaks in this world. Any language that has been spoken in the past and any language that will be spoken or in the future, they have knowledge of it. This is God-given. It's khuzanul ilm. They're khuzanul ilm. We have various instances of this, various accounts telling us about this during the time of the Ma'sumin. You have people companions of the Imam, Shias of the Imam, coming from as far away as, it says, China, and the Imam speaking to them in their own language. Okay. But there's one account that I found interesting when I was reading it, because at the time of Imam al-Sadiq, at the time of Imam al-Baqir, Salamullah alayhima, there's less of this being displayed. You don't see the Imams showing this type of knowledge too frequently. There are very few of the believers that get to see this, okay? It goes back to the point we were mentioning yesterday at the beginning of the session. So at that time, there wasn't too much of it. But at the time of the later Imams, at the time of Imam al-Jawad, at the time of Imam al-Hadi, at the time of Imam al-Askari, during the minor occultation, this became a lot more evident, meaning the Ahlul Bayt displayed this. They showed people that they had this more and more and more. One instance that we have of this is at the time of Imam al-Hadi, salamullah alayh. At that time, the Abbasid Khulafa had conquered Central Asia, what is now Uzbekistan, around that area. And so people from that area, at least in Arabic, in our literature, they're referred to as Atrak. They are considered Turks. Now, I haven't done too much research and see what they're referred to, what their race is referred to today in the West especially, but they seem to be referred to as, or part of the greater Turk nation. So they're Turks, they're Atrak. These people who were new Muslims were brought into the various cities of the Muslim empire by the Khulafa, the Abbasid Khulafa of that era. And once a whole army of them was parading in Medina, Imam al-Hadi, which you know he became an Imam very early on. He was a child when he became the Imam. In his earlier part of his life, this happened. When the army is parading in the city, the Imam tells his companions, let's go and see what these people are all about. So the Imam goes over and he calls one of them over, one of the soldiers riding on a horse. He calls him over and he comes over and he speaks to him. After he says a few words in a language that his companions did not understand, they saw the man came down and kissed the Imam's hand. Okay. And so others communicated with him and said, why did you do that? He said, not only did he speak to me in my own language, he called me by a name that my mother used to call me only when I was a child. And no one knew of this name. And I know only a prophet or a wasi would know such a thing. Okay. This is very basic. This isn't like very serious knowledge, but it is knowledge that none of us have. Okay. The knowledge of the past, the knowledge of the present, in this material universe. They have that knowledge. At the time of the occultation, the minor occultation, what happens is there's a difficult situation. On one hand, the Imam is in hiding. Right? The Imam is in hiding. So people can't really refer and find a person. The imamah of the Imam is also something that is not very openly told to people or said to people. People didn't know Abu Muhammad, which is Imam al-Askari, salamullah alayh. You gotta do a better salawat than that, brothers. They didn't know that the Imam had a child. It was supposed to be kept a secret. You've heard the stories of the birth of the Imam. It was top secret. We don't have time to go over this. Even people within the home of Imam al-Askari didn't know that he had a child. That's how secret this was. and of course very clever ways to keep that a secret. People that were living with the Imam in the same house didn't know that the Imam had a child. So when the Imam passed away, when he was martyred, believers are confused. What happened to Imamah? Do we have an Imam? Do we not have an Imam? Where is he? How do we communicate? So there's a number of things that happened. Imam al-Askari had done. A few of the close companions of the Imam had seen the 12th Imam. So they testified before other believers that there is a living Imam. Particularly the deputies of the Imam, the first two that were alive at the time of Imam al-Askari as well, they had a lot to do with the believers, with the Shia coming to know that they have a living Imam. But one of the other things that happened was that knowledge of the display of the knowledge of the unseen was a way, sort of like a miracle, to show people that you're communicating with the Imam. We have various accounts that people had their khums that they had to deliver to the Imam. You have, for example, the son of Ibrahim ibn Mahziyar, one of the companions of Imam al-Hadi and Imam al-Askari. He was the representative of the Imam in Ahwaz. His son was with his father when his father passed away, and his father told him, look, this money belongs to the Imam. We have to get it to him. And this was shortly after the Shahada of Imam al-Askari. So what do? I don't know of any Imam. There doesn't seem to be any Imam. But my father said it belongs to the Imam. He must have known something. He goes to Iraq and sets up base over there. He doesn't tell anyone. He hides this money and he doesn't tell anyone about it. After a while, someone comes and gives the exact description of whatever this was. A description that the son of Ibrahim ibn Mahziyar does not even know. He hadn't taken a look at the whole thing. It was a lot of wealth, whatever it was, gold coins and fabric, whatever it was. He didn't know all the details of what this was. This messenger of the Imam came over. It's not the Imam himself. It's the messenger of the Imam coming over, describing with every intricate detail what this is that he has and that it belongs to the Imam. Hand it over. Plenty of times this happens. In fact, we have times we have another account. These are found in Kitab al-Ghayba of Sheikh al-Tusi, an authentic source. We can't make up these stories. We have a Kitab al-Ghayba of Sheikh al-Tusi, who passed away in the 5th century. He's compiled some of these narrations through authentic sources. We have a book that is known as Al-Ghayba by Al-Nu'mani, who was earlier on. We have a book, Kamaluddin wa Tamamun Ni'ma of Sheikh al-Saduq. These various books, these are authentic books that have told us about that era, that period, what happened. So people in Qum gave their khums money to be delivered to the Imam. At this time, this is the time of the second deputy of the Imam, Al-Amri, the son, Muhammad ibn Sa'id, if I remember his name correctly. Al-Amri, the second Amri, who is the deputy of the Imam. It's at that time, the person who is responsible to deliver the khums from the people of Qum to the Imam goes over there and delivers everything he has, he thought. Once he gave everything over, he said his farewell. He was about to leave. The deputy says, you missed something out. Give us everything that you were given. He says, I gave you everything. He says, no, there's something missing. He searches everything he has there. He doesn't find anything. He goes back home. He searches everything he had. He doesn't even remember and he can't find anything. He's wondering what's going on. He goes back to him and he says, look, I really thought there's nothing else that was given to me. He says, yes, there were these 2 fabrics that were given to you to deliver to the Imam. And he remembered at that time. But the problem was, he remembered the fabric was given to him. He doesn't know where he put it. So he starts looking and looking and looking and searching. And he again goes to the representative of the Imam and tells him that this is happening. And I don't know where it is. And he says, there were 2 bags of cotton you took to this cotton trader. You had put the 2 fabrics in one of them on the side, and the one that has this written on it, that's the one that has this in it. And he said, I got really curious, and I went over there, and I went to the place that I had dropped off those bags. I went to that particular bag, and I checked. It was exactly on the side that he had said it was. Okay? This is very basic knowledge. This isn't really the extent of the knowledge of knowing where fabric is. Okay. That's not a big deal. Okay. But it's to show you, look, Amir al-Mu'mineen said this to his companion. I know the paths of the heavens more than I know the paths on earth. Okay. I am بطرق السماء أعلم مني بطرق الأرض, if I got the wording right in Arabic. I am more aware of what goes on in the heavens. Earth, material is very limited. It's not even... Recite a salawat, please. Knowledge of above. Okay. Material, they have all of that knowledge. Every bit of it. But beyond that, do we have anything that suggests some of the details? If you've heard the stories of the Mi'raj of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa the Ascension, when the Holy Prophet, one of the instances, there are a number of ascensions. People don't know this. They think there's one Mi'raj that the Holy Prophet went through. No, Mi'raj is every time that the Holy Prophet increases in faith. We have hadith in Al-Kafi that says this is frequent, it is continuous, it is non-stop. And it says if it was otherwise, then the Ahlul Bayt wouldn't be the Ahlul Bayt. The Ahlul Bayt would be destroyed, in the wording of the hadith. There's always got to be progress. There's always perfecting that happens. The Ahlul Bayt are increasing. The Ahlul Bayt are progressing and moving further and further and further. It does not stop. In one of the ahadith, it suggests that this happens on Thursday nights, telling us what the significance of Thursday nights are. Comparing that to Laylatul Qadr, I'm just very briefly throwing that at you for you to think about that. When you look at the story of Mi'raj, the various heavens going from Masjidul Aqsa to the first heaven, the first sama, and then the second, and then the third, and what he saw there, the angels, the descriptions, which all of these descriptions are symbolic, metaphoric. They're using language that we could understand. Sidratul Muntaha. Sidra is a tree. Is there a tree in some heaven? When you move above and beyond the material realm, there's nothing material there, so you don't have a tree there. Okay, that's symbolic. It's metaphoric. It means something that is so above and beyond us that it has to be watered down by giving us a term that makes sense to us, so we can have somewhat of an understanding of the experience the Holy Prophet had. Otherwise, what we've heard about the angel of death, the angel that takes care of hellfire, and the angels that are building the mansions of the believers, and all of that is symbolic and metaphoric. Okay. But that tells us, the gist of it, okay, is the understanding of the realms of existence that are beyond the material. The Ahlul Bayt have all of that knowledge. They have access to it. In fact, in that first ascension of the Holy Prophet, it says that he reached a point where Jibreel said, if I get closer and mulatan, one fingertip, I would burn my wings. I can't move above this. Okay. And the Holy Prophet in the first ascension moved above that, progressed above and beyond that. So the knowledge they have is far above and beyond of whether it's the material realm or the non-material realm. Some of the things that we're going to end this discussion of the knowledge of the Ahlul Bayt with, recite a salawat, please. There's a discussion in our hadith books that existed at the time of the Ma'sumin. So how much knowledge do the Ahlul Bayt exactly have? Do they have all of the knowledge of God? Or do they not have all of God's knowledge? There's a list of hadith. This was a discussion. It was a theological discussion, a debate amongst the companions of the Ahlul Bayt and others. Very briefly, I just want to allude to it. What we have in the ahadith is that the Ahlul Bayt have all of the knowledge that God has given any creation plus more. Okay. In other words, there is none of God's creation that has the same knowledge that the Ahlul Bayt have. The Holy Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt, obviously. No other being, no angel, no prophet, no pious person, no one has the same knowledge that the Ahlul Bayt have. They have the knowledge that God has given all other angels, or all angels, all prophets. They have all that plus more. But is that all of God's knowledge? The answer is no. God is infinite. The Ahlul Bayt can't have knowledge of infinite. They cannot have knowledge of the divine. They cannot have all of the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why we have very clear hadith. There is knowledge that is ghaib of Allah. Going back to, remember that passage we have in the ziyarah, irtadakum li ghaibih. What is the meaning of ghaib? Ghaib means something that is unseen. Unseen to who? For you and I, something that's behind that wall is unseen. Okay. For the companion of Sulaiman, that's not unseen. He can see it. Okay. Very clearly. If he's able to see miles away and bring the throne of Bilqis over, right? He can know what's behind that wall. He has that knowledge. It's unseen to us, it's not unseen to him. It's ghaib for us, it's not ghaib for him. Okay? For someone who can see beyond that, see some of the non-material realms, what he can see is not ghaib to him, it's ghaib to those who can't see it. Right? So to the Ahlul Bayt, whatever they can see, it's ghaib to me, it's ghaib to you, it's ghaib to some of the angels. Some of it is ghaib from all angels, but there is a ghaib that is ghaib for everyone, all creation, including the Ahlul Bayt. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself is ghaib. Okay. No one can actually see him or observe him in any way. It is his manifestations that we're able to see and know of. Okay. He is ghaib. He himself is ghaib. There is no way that anyone can actually know him. For him, he is shahid. He sees everything. There is no ghaib from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. For everyone else, there is a ghaib. For the Ahlul Bayt, God himself is ghaib. They don't have access to it. Nothing has access to that. No one has access to that. It's something, it's like they use the example of the center of light. Okay, sort of. It's symbolic language to get us to sort of get the idea. Sort of, okay. It's not the same idea at all. It's very different. But the source of light, the brighter it gets, the more impossible it is for you to actually look at it and see it. Okay. The source of light. The sun from this distance, you're not even too close. From this distance, if you want to look on a sunny day, when there's less clouds, less obstacles for you to see it, it's difficult. They tell you not to do it, even if you can. It's harmful for you, or you don't do that. It's very difficult to look at the source of light. Now, if you get closer and closer, and you want to look at that source, you can't do that. This is to sort of tell us about this idea. God is the source of light. It is not possible for any creation to be able to see him. It's not that he is depriving anyone. He is so exalted, he is so perfect, infinite, that no creation can see him. Okay. So you have that ghaib that is ghaib from everyone, including the Ahlul Bayt. There are other questions about the knowledge of the unseen of the Ahlul Bayt. I'll throw them out. I hope this is beneficial. Inshallah, it is. We have hadith, again going back to the debate that existed at the time of the Ahlul Bayt. Do the Ahlul Bayt have knowledge of the unseen? Do they not have knowledge of the unseen? One of the debates was this: do they just have knowledge of the unseen? In other words, it's always there? Or is it that, no, they don't have currently knowledge of the unseen, but if they want it, God gives it to them? Okay. Which one of these is it? If they ask for it, God gives. It's like a dua. You ask for something, God gives it to you. Our du'as, my du'as, with the limitations I have, with the sins I have committed, well, obviously my dua is not going to be responded to the way the dua of the Ahlul Bayt is responded. If they ask for something, God gives. One of its knowledge, one of the things they can ask for is knowledge of something that others cannot see, cannot know. They can ask for it and God gives it. Is it based on them asking and then God giving, otherwise they don't have it? Or is it something that they constantly and continuously have? We have a series of hadith that seems to suggest that they ask for it and God gives. Okay. So it might be understood that the Ahlul Bayt don't currently have all of that knowledge. They don't currently know everything about this material realm and everything about the non-material realm of creation and beyond that. But if they ask for it, God gives. Okay. If they ask for it, God gives. That seems to be suggested over there. And some of the ulama have taken that and they have said the material existence of the imams, the one that came at a particular time in this world, it came after other prophets. The Holy Prophet came after Adam, after Nuh, after Ibrahim, after Musa, after Isa. Right? The material existence of the Holy Prophet lived 63 years at a particular time in history, after certain prophets, before certain imams, before us, and so on and so forth. This material existence of the imams is the one that, yes, it needs to ask. They need to ask to get it. Okay. But a higher level of the existence of the imam, which we've heard of this, and we have this in Ziyarah Jami'ah Kabira as well, the nur of the Ahlul Bayt, the nur of the Holy Prophet, the light of the Holy Prophet, which that is what is, they say, these are some of the terms they throw out, I'm just throwing out, I don't really understand what this means. They say the first creation is the light of the Holy Prophet. Okay. The first creation of this is the light of the Holy Prophet. If you hear in some hadith that he precedes Adam and Nuh and Ibrahim and Musa and Isa, it's the light of the Holy Prophet. It's the light of the Ma'sumin. Light doesn't mean this light, by the way, obviously. It means something immaterial. Okay, it's something immaterial that we can't get our heads around. And the word that's used for us is light. Okay. And there's reasons why, which inshallah we'll leave maybe for some other time and for your own reading. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the right of the Ahlul Bayt, that He enlightens our hearts with the light of the Ahlul Bayt. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the return of our Imam. We ask Him to enable us to be of His true and close companions. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect and prolong the life of all those helping the cause of Islam, especially those who are putting their lives on the line to protect Islam and Muslims by fighting the enemies of Islam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect and prolong the life of our Maraja, especially our leader. We ask Him to forgive us all of our sins. We ask Him to forgive our parents, our grandparents, our relatives, all believers, those who are alive, those who have left this world, of their sins. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant all of us our hajat, our needs, our requests, to relieve all of the believers of the illnesses, difficulties, sufferings, especially those in Iraq, in Yemen, in Bahrain, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Pakistan, anywhere in the world that believers are suffering, in Burma. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to relieve them all of the difficulties, sufferings, illnesses. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to relieve all the people of the world of the oppressions they're facing. Bin Nabiy wa alih, rahimallah man qara'a al-fatihata ma'a as-salawat.